thank you for joining me. I want to share a piece by a lady called Becky Hemsley. I haven't heard of her work before, but I saw it on a friend's Facebook page, so looked into it, and apparently it's from her second collection in 2022. But it resonates, and I'm sure it will do with quite a few of you, especially when I simply give you the title, I'm Fine. Today I said I'm fine, not once but 5 times altogether. When people asked, how are you? Then made small talk of the weather. And so I hid behind my mask, the one I'd worn a while. I set in place my bravest face and dressed it with a smile. And that was how the day went, all I'm fine and talk of rain, until somebody asked me how I was, then asked me again. They asked if I was truly fine, and I said I was not. And they said they were sorry that they couldn't do a lot. But then they sat beside me whilst I spoke the truth at last. They listened and they held me as the tears slipped through my mask. And where before I'd felt I should maintain this brave facade, I realised there was much to gain by letting down my guard. See, though my load was still the same, it now was not as heavy, 'cause sitting and offloading it had helped a bit already. Today they asked, how are you? And I told them I was fine, till someone saw behind the mask and asked me one more time. And though they may have felt that there was little they could do, they'll never know how much it meant to tell someone the truth. Now, the more observant, the more observant of you will see that I've been sitting like a lollipop holding a glass of water here. And no, it wasn't in case I suddenly had a dry throat. It is a tool that I've used when I've been talking to people many times in the past. And I don't know the person's name, it was a psychiatrist or a psychologist who stood in front of a big group of students walking around carrying a glass of water. And again, some will have noticed and some have just thought, oh, what's she doing? But I've been holding this without resting my arm on the chair, and my arm is beginning to feel tired. And that's only a little load, a small load. So if you can share that, offload some of that. I have a plant down here ready. Okay, the load is lighter. Doesn't necessarily say the load has gone completely, but it probably is at a more manageable level for you. Yeah, you have to be a bit careful about the people to whom you open up. You know who is a good listener and who isn't. You know if somebody is going to be talking about themselves, talking about the weather, and that really, I should put that water down now, that really can have a bad negative effect on you. One day I'd been really struggling and managed to push myself to go out for a short walk, and I saw somebody that I know not desperately well, and that they said, "Oh, how are you?" I said, I'm fine. But I knew I looked really haggard, and I knew that if I wasn't careful I would burst into tears. And this person just said, "Oh, good, well, and that was it. They were off on one. So I just said, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm in a big hurry." Departed stage left with the tears flowing down my face. Luckily I didn't see anybody else, so I was able to retreat. But those people who will just sit and be, and sit and not necessarily expect you to offload and tell your deepest, darkest problems, but just having somebody there that you can occasionally touch their hand, or have them put their arm around your shoulder or touch your hand, that physical warmth, that offering of support, oh boy, does it ever mean a lot. And some people are of the idea that people make up depression, but they don't. They don't. They may fake being okay, as in fine, but they don't fake depression. So remember that and be kind. And the words really resonate for me because on my first ever counselling session, I was still training, I was supposed to be working with somebody who was struggling with time management, and there wasn't an awful lot of emotional problems there. And the two counsellors, I was at a student at a university, the two proper counsellors had just gone in to see their clients, and the secretary came and said, "I've got a young man who is desperate. Will you see him?" I said, "Well, if he waits." "No, he won't wait. He said he's going if he can't see somebody straight away." So I said, "Well, if you could let my other client know." And I met with this young man, and he was suicidal. So I spent about 3.5 hours with him, with apparently the other two counsellors coming and listening at regular intervals to the door. And as there was not any ranting and raving or screaming from either of us, they left me to it, which I always appreciated. But at one point, this young man lifted his eyes up, looked me straight in my eyes, and I said, "How are you really?" "I'm fine." I said, "Right, okay, that's the rubbish out of the way. How are you really?" And he said, "Nobody's ever bothered to ask me that." And he said, "Do you want to know?" I said, "I truly do." And he said, "I'm flipping." Well, he didn't say flipping, it was another word starting with F, but I don't want YouTube to complain. "Fucking insecure, neurotic and empty." Lots to work on. And as with so many clients, I'd never saw him again, so I often thought about him. I did stop looking in the press to see if there was any notice of a student having committed suicide. But 2 years later, I got a letter forwarded from the university, from this young man, to say, "Just to let you know, I have just graduated, thanks to you." And boy, did that make my day, my month, my year. It really, really meant so much that he had thought of me and that I had made a difference. So you can make a difference. You don't have to have any skills apart from being willing to set aside you and focus on the person who is struggling. You don't have to advise. You don't have to say what's worked for you. Just let them talk. Let them cry. Let them know that you are there. On that note, take care. Take the very best care of yourself that you can. Bye for now. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.